Ready?
Everybody's got prejudge on when they hear about cannabis in general. Well, it's like the canine species of plants. Every different plant is a different version of it. You've got hybrids, you've got indicas, you've got sativas, you've got hemp, kind of like labs and chihuahuas. They're completely different. I'm gonna break down why, for one, 2 years ago I was given a diagnosis to combat PTSD. 2 years ago I was successfully off all medications. I was given 7 different forms of opioids, 3 different forms of controlled substances, and was basically strung out, to be honest, strung out. I transitioned off of all of them onto medical cannabis. A year and a half ago, successfully. When I started my transition, I was 293 pounds, and with a 52-inch waist. I've lost 112 pounds. I'm now a full-time student, but 60% completed with my degree. I actually can function in society. So I guess that's where I just want to put some relevance into why I, with the group, kind of picked this topic. According to the studies at UCLA Health, THC is the active ingredient. That's what everybody knows. That's what everybody hears when it comes to cannabis. It's THC, THC. Well, that's what doesn't do anything medically. That's what gets you high. It's the only thing it does. But CBD is the non-active side of it. That one is mainly used for nausea. It will do some parts of seizures, but there's a better cannabinoid that I'm gonna explain later down, as well as some migraines. CBN is a neurological. So that one can be used more for epilepsy and uncontrolled stiffness in muscles, and then read the last one. Then there's THCA. This one is not very common, that not many people know about. This is the one that will help with ALS and Parkinson's and stuff like that, where they have uncontrolled tremors. This also helps a lot with seizures. And the last one we go into is CBG. This one is used for anxiety, OCD, PTSD like myself. It's where you got to start, where it's when somebody starts really can't controlling compulses on something. This helps break that cycle. I mean, now that everybody has a generalized idea of why there is some side of medical to it, and it's not just people wanting just an excuse to legalize weed. We're gonna go into also now why there's also a bad side, because I'm also a firm believer that it's not the magical drug. It won't fix everything. There's also better choices out there. It's not for everybody, but I just wanted to make sure everybody's informed.
Okay, so when it comes to the cons of medical marijuana, there are actually a lot of factors that can be talked about. With the frequent use of it, you can actually start to struggle with short-term memory. For some people, that hits them a lot differently than others, so that can affect you differently. It also impairs your thoughts for like common things that average people can just do during the day. Like, for example, like just driving a car or maybe just playing like an instrument. It can become really hard because of these small constant thoughts that have to be going through your head. Another debate is that you can become addicted to it. According to WebMD, which is like a leader in health and medical news, about 1 in 10 people that start medical marijuana can lead to addiction. And after that, it can lead to withdrawals that have a lot of different side effects that can affect them, such as like becoming restless, they can start eating differently, and they can also have like a different sleep schedule because of it. Another thing that has been coming up lately is that cancer is also unknown to be found in medical marijuana. Research is being done to see if cancer is inside of it, mainly for lung cancer due to the smoking of medical marijuana. But because of that, they don't really know anything yet because this is new research, so they're still trying to find stuff about that. But I think that if they do find something about that, cancer could play a big role in the legalization of medical marijuana. One of the biggest reasons that I do believe that it's not legal is that having medical marijuana means that it's going to be an excuse for recreational down the line to become legal. For example, like legalizing this would just in the future, a huge conversation would then be happening, and I would say it's probably like 4 years even became legal, about recreational marijuana becoming a big thing. Now, cannabis is used more than just for medical marijuana. There's also an industrial side of it as well.
Industrial marijuana, or just industrial hemp, has over 25,000 uses, ranging from food, paint, fuels, clothing, and even building materials. There's over 2,000 strains of hemp, and only about 10% have to do with anything medical. And only recently is it making a comeback. It used to be a token material or prize raw material in the 19th century. It's also just very popular in the textile industry, considering it can be made into a very strong fiber. Hemp is great for many things, such as it can produce 4 times the amount of paper a tree can per acre, and it can even be produced at a significantly faster pace, considering it only takes 1 season to grow hemp. It takes years to grow a tree. Hemp can even be turned into a polymer, which can be made into fuels or plastics. It can even be turned into a mesh or fabric, and surprisingly enough, can even become a beverage. Hemp is even one of the strongest natural fibers. It's just behind ultra-strong spider silk, which can be comparable to high-grade steel. But the fiber's tensile strength is close to steel at 886 megapascals, and doubling basic structural steel at 400 megapascals. Hemp is also one of the most resistant and durable plant fibers, making it a staple in producing textile fabrics, whatnot. It can even be turned into ropes, heavy canvas, all while being softer than silk. Again, making it perfect for clothing. But not all of its use is fabric. It can be broken down and turned into a malleable polymer, which can be used to make plastics. And the hemp and the plastic is also more biodegradable, safer for the environment. It's all around good. Hemp can even be used as a food source. You can just eat seeds as is, you can grind it up into a meal, you can even turn it weirdly into a milk for baking purposes. And another fun fact about the hemp industry is one of our very own state representatives, David Monson, is trying to get more bills passed for furthering for industrial farming of just in the state. Right now, you can only have a specific amount, and it's not even just for medical growth. There's also bad sides to it as well.
Alright, so the biggest disadvantage with using industrial hemp is that, according to a article written by Dr. Shazim in the University of California, Los Angeles, is that the production time to produce those extremely strong fibers is quite lengthy. So once the plant is harvested, they must be left outside to go through a process which is called retting, which means they need to be left outside in the sun for anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. So that is the major downside, and one of the bigger downsides to being able to use this industrial material is that it takes a very long time to produce, even though the plant itself grows relatively quickly. Another disadvantage that is kind of goes along with its biggest advantage of it being biological is that all things biological are subject to flaws. It's just kind of how DNA works. There are mutations in the code whenever things get transcribed for the next generation. It's how things change, it's how things evolve. This, however, can lead to imperfections in those fibers once they're produced, which means an entire batch can be no longer used for production because it doesn't have that same tensile strength that was mentioned earlier. So it's one of its biggest advantages turns into one of its biggest disadvantages. As I mentioned earlier, the production time is quite lengthy, so that is oftentimes where synthetics are much better. So say you're a t-shirt company, you need to make a bunch of t-shirts and you need a product like yesterday. A better example would be go with something synthetic or like cotton, which has a much shorter production time to create those fibers to be used in production. However, and as in the past, the reason why it was used so much in the past is that technology hadn't surpassed those natural fibers yet. Whereas today we do have the technology to be able to produce a better synthetic product.
So in the end, we can see that there's a lot of pros and cons, and then reasons why this should be legal or not. For example, in medical marijuana, it can help patients that are suffering from different things, but it may also have some side effects that can cause them problems in the long run. And then industrial cannabis is a really strong fiber and it's good for the environment. But as you said, it also can take a lot of time, and synthetics can sometimes be a better way to go. So hopefully you guys all know different forms of cannabis now and how they're used and why they could be good or bad.